This is Ebonhardt. He was in the stream earlier today. He is super cool. Really like this guy. I like him even more now that he obviously he's a way bigger content creator than I am. It is really cool of him to come by and say what's up and even follow the channel. So if you guys have never heard of Ebonhardt, he makes a lot of classic WoW content. He makes good videos, really entertaining. I've like basically watched all of these. I really like his stuff, but we're gonna watch one of his videos real quick. This is called TBC versus Classic Plus, original versus remake.
The Burning Crusade is the original Classic Plus. That's right, everything from the Caverns of Time to Mount Hyjal to Karazhan Tower to even Hellfire Peninsula itself. On top of that, even level 70 was an original vanilla concept.
Yeah, this is all true, and this is I've not like really heard people talk about this, but this is 100% factual. All of the TBC content, like all of that stuff, was just supposed to be in Classic, which makes sense, right? Because they were in the middle of developing the game. They ran out of time, and so they just pushed all this stuff that they had sort of like started development on. They just pushed it back into TBC. So a lot of the stuff that you play with in TBC was just originally meant for Classic WoW. Is that the iteration they wanted? I don't know, probably not. But the ideas originally were from Vanilla. So
Vanilla WoW was designed to go to level 70, but that was scrapped and left at a level cap of 60 instead. Now, TBC took a lot of things from vanilla World of Warcraft. It's essentially the original Classic Plus, a continuation of the vanilla world, but updated, expanded upon, improved, and made better for more and more people. Now, for the most part, the original idea behind Outland and Hellfire
it's an interesting statement by him. I don't totally agree. So just the idea that TBC just took vanilla and just made everything better. Maybe I'm misquoting him there, right? But that's how I understood what he said. In your attempt to make everything better for everyone, you inevitably end up changing the dynamic and the secret sauce that makes Classic WoW so unique and special. Um, Classic is such a great game because it's not accessible to like every single person in every way that they want. Like you can play an enhancement shaman, but they're not very good. You know, you can play a rep paladin, but they're not great. Like that's really not a good idea. And because of that, when you do get the opportunity to be an enhancement shaman, it's like it's amazing. It's super, super awesome. The idea that like all the specs should be equal to each other, and I know he didn't say that, is not the same thing as like, hey, this spec shouldn't be just completely horrible, certainly. But I don't know that the solution is just like, let's get everything up to speed. You know, classes should certainly be better than they are, but just improving on every single part of vanilla by, you know, making it more accessible, or I don't really I'm just I guess I'm afraid that if you have that mindset, that you're gonna lose something that makes Classic such a unique game. So I don't know.
Peninsula versus the TBC Outland on Hellfire Peninsula are two completely different things. Through and through, the original Outland is nowhere near as massive or all-encompassing as the Outland we got on TBC. In fact, Hellfire Peninsula was not a peninsula, it was a giant floating piece of shit. It was a giant floating rock hovering through the deepness of space for lore reasons. Because the original Outland was more akin to a turbocharged Warcraft 3 Outland than anything else we knew. Hellfire Peninsula was designed for Vanilla's World of Warcraft, but like a lot of other concepts, it got scrapped.
Yo, am I the only person that like absolutely just loves these floating trees? These bad boys right here. Are these just not every time I see these, I just think these are so sick. Like I love this like this what do you call them in games? There's a word for it when you have like a piece that you can like put in everywhere. Whatever, you guys know what I'm talking about. That one item though, there's like asset. That one asset is so cool to me. I don't know what it is, but I freaking love it. Voliski said that's why TBC is my all-time favorite experience, and I always said it's finished vanilla. I feel like TBC also had its fair share of meme specs. Um, yes and no. Like, I think that a lot of TBC is hype, and I think that we experience that. There are certainly people who love TBC, and I'm not trying to downplay that. And I'll talk about this more later on in the video, but I feel like a lot of what people claim they love about TBC, um, they don't they say one thing and then how they engage with the game is completely different. And I know there's a lot of people that are hyped about TBC, but I got to tell you, I think that history is going to repeat itself here. I think that there's going to be a lot of people excited about TBC. I think it's going to come out, and maybe that it's on an accelerated schedule. It's going to help quite a bit because TBC dragged on the first time. The phase one was way too long, but damn near killed Classic. Like TBC was not popular at all. Like when you consider how popular Vanilla was, and then you look at Classic TBC, like Classic Vanilla compared to Classic TBC, the 2019 re-releases of the game, TBC fell off hard. And I think it's not as strong of an expansion as people act like it is. It's my own personal opinion. I know everyone's going to kill me for that one too.
Like a lot of other concepts, it got scrapped due to time constraints, raid constraints, budget constraints, just manpower in general. Nobody really knew how popular World of Warcraft was going to be. They knew it was going to be popular, but to the scale it got, nobody could have predicted that. So they needed to get the game out the door at 2004, and they couldn't spend more time developing newer zones and areas. For the most part, original Hellfire Peninsula was meant to be one zone of vanilla. It wasn't a whole continent, it wasn't an expansion. It's more akin to Encourage in the scale of content available to it. It wasn't meant to take you away from Azeroth forever, but for a phase. Just like we went down to AQ, we went down to Silithus, we had a good time, we did the Encourage war effort, we did all that juicy stuff. Original Outland and Hellfire Peninsula was essentially that. If they had done a phase instead of going to TBC initially, imagine after Naxx, it was the Outland phase. It would have been something akin to a raid, maybe a dungeon or two, some new quest lines, a new open world event of some sort. Just, you know, continuing the game world a bit and letting you keep progressing and playing. But they chose to go TBC instead, and that led to the original Classic Plus that we got. Because that's what
Yeah, so this is another issue with TBC, and the fact, like the biggest issue with TBC in my experience is that it in my not my experience, in my opinion, been a long day, boys. Been a long day. In my opinion, the biggest issue is that it is an expansion, like just period, like full stop. That's the issue with it. And when people play an expansion, what do they expect to happen? Maybe not anymore because we've now seen the downfall of this, but especially back then, power level needs to go up, level needs to go up, experiences need to go up. You had a ground mount, now you should add a flying mount, right? Like everything needs to be increased. The issue with that is obvious, right? You can only do that so much. The idea that everything has to be a vertical progression is really, really problematic. And it needs to be like you got to watch that kind of stuff. I also believe like TBC was when we went from like uh percentages on our gear, right? And that's when we went to rating, like hit rating and expertise rating and those kind of things. And that was I don't love that system. I understand why that system exists. I get it because you can't just like keep going up and up on percentages because eventually you just get to 100%. But it makes it much harder. Like when a Band of Ikuria drops, you just know that it's good because it's 2% or 2% hit, right? When something has a 164 hit rating, like you don't really know like what does that really mean. And if you're really familiar with the game you'll know, but the vast majority of players are not. You're going to have to do simulation, you're going to have to do some calculation. And so like the number one issue that TBC has is the fact that it is built on top of classic WoW.
TBC was, for all intents and purposes, an expansion upon vanilla. The first expansion, changing and improving the game to make it more accessible and fun and enjoyable. Now a lot of people love vanilla's world through and through, but TBC did do a lot of things right, but it also changed a lot of things and took away from the vanilla experience by virtue of taking us away from vanilla. We moved to Outland, but in Classic Plus, that would be different. And that's the difference between Classic Plus of the modern day and Classic Plus back in the day. The original Classic Plus is just an expansion. They're doing more in World of Warcraft. Nobody realized that World of Warcraft would eventually get all the way to midnight coming out very early next year.
He is 100% right about that. The original Classic Plus is literally just an expansion. It's just TBC. That's all it is. And now what we're wanting, the reason that Classic Plus has so much hype behind it is because we don't want another expansion, right? We've seen like, okay, this is not the best thing for the game. What we want is the classic framework, and we just want to add on to that. We don't want to expand past it, right?
20 plus years of World of Warcraft. If you had told somebody back in 2004 they were going to be playing World of Warcraft for 20 years, they would have laughed at your face and said, no shot. And then guess what? 20 years later, here we are.
Yeah, I don't know if I should be sad about that or not. But here we are.
Considering that Classic Plus is an eventuality at this point, we know for a fact they're working on new things after Season Discovery, after Classic in general. We don't know that it's going to be called Classic Plus. It's probably going to be called Azeroth Reborn, Azeroth Adventures Untold, some stuff like that. But we are getting something afterwards, but we're going to have to wait till BlizzCon.
Bro, if they don't call this game Classic Plus, it is the biggest fumble. Blizzard has done some pretty big fumbles. They have dropped the bag multiple times. They have screwed up over and over and over again. If they are so dense that they do not call this product Classic Plus, there's literally no helping them. Like, that's beyond salvageable. Because you have so much. What do you want when you have an item or a product, right? You want brand recognition. You want something that resonates with people. When you hear Classic Plus, you guys know what we're talking about, right? Everybody knows. My wife knows what we're talking about. Like, everybody knows what Classic Plus is. We've been talking about it since August 26, 2019. Classic Plus, it's what we want, right? If they don't call it Classic Plus, I can't. Like, I just cannot.
Next year, because that's the earliest time frame we're looking at getting a brand new expansion upon Classic. And what would Classic Plus even look like? Considering that TBC really did complete, and I'm using complete here loosely, the vanilla world's original storylines and arcs. Now, I don't want to talk about Hellfire Peninsula too much because that is one of the more outlandish what-if scenarios in this context. It was part of original vanilla plans, but no matter how they do it, it's not really classic in this context because it would be taking too much from the TBC concept that they made. Original Outland is no longer a real thing. I don't even know if they could find the original note for original Outland. What would that even look like? Now, realistically, they could just port Hellfire Peninsula from TBC into the vanilla world, block off the rest of the continent, and just have Hellfire Peninsula be its own thing, self-segregated zone, quests, dungeons, raid if you want, and move on from there. But honestly, if they are going to use Hellfire Peninsula, that should be one of the last things they come back to alongside the Emerald Dream.
It's not important, in my opinion, that they use ideas that they had from original Classic. Like, it's obviously a good idea and it's easy because you have like Dragon Isles and, you know, Grim Batol and all these things. Like, use those. Like, those are cool ideas, you know. Use the Furbolg Gate and Ashar or whatever. Like, do all that stuff. But it doesn't need to exclusively just be ideas that they had in Classic. It just needs to be in the spirit of Classic, right? Like, it doesn't, I don't care if it was an original design idea. Like, that doesn't bother me at all. They can design new stuff. It just needs to fit into the framework and the spirit of Classic. It needs to feel like Classic. Also, the idea that like instanced areas, right? Like New Avalon is sort of instanced out from Eastern Plaguelands over in Sod. If you guys aren't playing Sod, there's like this new area which is east of Lights Hope Chapel in Eastern Plaguelands for the new raid, the Scarlet Enclave. And it's not instanced out because there's not like a portal that you go into, but it is completely separate from the rest of the zone. I don't know that I love that. Like, it feels kind of cool if you can make something be a part of the zone. Molosky says Ashara is almost totally empty. Do something there. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Ashara is like a prime example of a place where you could really spruce it up by adding a few things over there. You know, quest lines, add some like, you know, leveling hubs, something like that. Something to do. Daily quests, I think, are another really good one that you can add, especially in Ashara. Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be old content. You can use new ideas. You have to fit it needs to be the spiritual successor of Classic when you do this new stuff.
They should not really be using Hellfire Peninsula until the very end of after finishing all the other Classic plus vanilla storylines and content.
I completely agree with that. I think that if they're going to use things that are already established in TBC, that's towards the end of the game. Like, and people are going to be really critical of those things, right? Because they're not new. They're kind of like rehashing. So you gotta be real careful there. Oh, I'm sorry. That wasn't Molosky. That was freaking Scorpius. My bad, bro. Your names are both purple.
But if you do wanna,
bro, Ashara Crater, Tristan, 100%. Give us that freaking battleground. We want that battleground, right? Give us that. That would be such a crazy freaking battleground to have in Classic. Like, could you imagine?
Make a Dark Portal event, introduce Blood Elves, maybe Draenei, some new races. You don't have to do those, you could do High Elves and Goblins, but introduce some new races. You can still use the portal opening, but I don't necessarily think we should go through it in the first couple years of Classic Plus, but that's just my opinion. So we're gonna move on to an actually much more popular, well-known vanilla thing that was very, very much so even more popular in TBC, and that is Karazhan Tower. TBC Karazhan is a massive.
They nailed this, by the way, in SOD. Like, Karazhan Crypts, it's obviously not Karazhan Tower, right? But Karazhan Crypts is like so much fun. The first night that we were in there for like 2 or 3 hours because we couldn't find one of the keys forever. It was really dark. We had such a good time. There's mimics all over the place. The classes interact with different things in different ways. Like if you're a druid, you can talk to the plants and it'll light them up. Or if you're a herbalist, if you're a warlock or a mage, you can talk to like these certain bosses that will spawn another mob. Like there's just so many cool little things that you can do in there. It's such a fun dungeon. Karazhan Crypts is a really good example of it's an old idea, completely done brand new, that completely fits like that Dungeons and Dragons type aesthetic and theme and gameplay modality that is just perfect in classic World of Warcraft. So good. I feel like they will copy Turtle WoW, and it ain't a bad thing. Nothing wrong with borrowing good ideas. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. You know, the full quote to that is the imitation is the most sincere form of flattery that it's too late, dude. That mediocrity can pay to greatness, I believe is the I'm gonna look it up. Yeah, mediocrity can pay to greatness. That's the whole quote. But I agree with what you're saying. I talked about it in an earlier video. I think that not learning from the things that Turtle WoW has done well would be a rookie mistake from a billion-dollar company. Like I talked about it earlier. You know, I own an MMA gym, and in MMA, we're not a style; we're a collection of styles. We're really a collection of ideas, and we just go, all right, well, you know, boxing, good head movement, good footwork, good punches. We like that. Wrestling, all right. Well, we got to shoot from the outside. That's important. Jiu-jitsu, yep. Get on top, stay on top. That's pretty good. If you're on the bottom, how are you going to get up? You know, Muay Thai, excellent elbows. And like we just took all these different ideas, we smashed them together, and then you have mixed martial arts, which is by far the most effective form of fighting, right? Blizzard should just use that exact same ideology, you know, just like Bruce Lee said. Um, you wanna take what is useful, disregard what is not, and then make it uniquely your own. Turtle WoW is doing some very unique things and very cool things. Blizzard would be wise to learn from them.
A far cry from original Karazhan. In fact, they're two completely different things. The TBC Karazhan is a 10-man raid, small, fine-tuned, beautiful, well thought out on design. OG Karazhan is absolutely ginormous. In fact, it's probably one of the biggest structures ever made. Imagine if Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, and Blackrock Mountain was one raid. That's original Karazhan. It is ginormous. It has two locations. You have Upper Karazhan and then Lower Karazhan, and they're both just huge. They would have to put 20 plus bosses into this raid to make it be filled and fleshed out. In fact, the only other option is to put an obscene amount of trash in here that makes it a completely unfun raid to do.
Hey, you know what? Not a bad idea. Put 20 bosses in there. Like BFD is, or BRD is like everybody's favorite. Like BRD is just objectively the best dungeon ever made in any MMO RPG ever of all time. I'm not open to dissent on this. Like BRD is just goated, right? And why is BRD so goated? Because it's a living zone. There are mobs everywhere. There are bosses around every single corner. All of them all of them have their own lore. All of them have a reason for being there. It is literally like a capital city for the dwarves. You know, it's incredible. Like it's perfect. The scale of that place it's mind-boggling. The Dark Iron Dwarves feel so lived in that space. It just feels great. There's like how many freaking bosses are in BRD? Let's check. How many bosses in BRD? 41 bosses. Is that right? That's insane. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. I asked Google. 20 bosses total if you count every name. I don't know. This actually might not be doing classic. Anyway, there's a lot, right? Like you guys get my point. There's a ton of bosses in BRD, and it's freaking phenomenal. Do the same thing in Karazhan. Give us another one of those. I remember every single time that I level up in classic, I get to like around, like 52, 53, and I do a full BRD run every single time because it's just epic. You level up like twice while you're doing it. You have all these cool quests, you get all these badass rewards, you get a chance for Hand of Justice. There's all these other items that are along the way that aren't like pre-raid bis, but they're pretty damn good until you get your pre-raid bis. They're like pre-raid bis. A full run of BRD with the boys take like 6 hours, 7 hours to the whole thing. Just man, that's like peak MMO stuff. It's just so good.
And it's for that reason that Karazhan Tower was shrunk down. They made it much smaller. They compressed that stuff down into like one little 10-man raid. But in a Classic Plus that finishes vanilla storylines and arcs, they should finish off Karazhan, both upper and lower. They already did Karazhan Crypts and Season of Discovery. It was very well received, people loved it, but they should do more. We should have a 40-man raid, or flex raiding, I'm not sure what they're going to do for Classic Plus, and a 20-man raid. The ZG and the Blackwing Lair, the AQ40 and the AQ20. They should fully utilize Karazhan for what it's meant to be. A giant
20 to 21 bosses. That's what ChatGPT pulled up when I asked him how many were in classic classic BRD, which is still nuts. Freaking 22 bosses in a dungeon. It's insane.
giga structure full of the secrets of Azeroth, because Medivh and the Guardian, there's so much lore and storyline that the people don't even realize the secrets being buried deep within Medivh's tower. And it's a mostly finished location.
We have literally, and I'm not a big lore guy, but I know this. I know enough about the lore to say this. We have barely scratched the surface of lore about Medivh and Classic. What we've done basically nothing. There's so much stuff that we can do with Medivh that would be so cool, especially if we're going to be in Karazhan. It's a no-brainer.
They just need to retexture it, add some doodads, add some gimmicks, design new bosses, actually flesh it out. So many things could be done here to expand upon the vanilla world. You could literally make 3 whole phases out of Karazhan and still not run out of content. That place is obscene. Literally at the very end of it, there are portals to other dimensions. You could what if scenarios outland in the past, a whole different world.
Dude, Escape from Karazhan was goated in Legion. What a badass dungeon. So much freaking fun, dude. When you went into space and you were fighting the mob outside, like the giant eyeball dude. Oh, that was so good.
Demon planet. Whatever you want, Karazhan is expansive beyond measure. It just isn't being utilized to its full potential. Heck, they can still even use TBC's Karazhan as an alternate timeline Karazhan What If. That's how much Karazhan can be utilized in Classic Plus. But Karazhan for the most part is a place people love and adore. It's a lot of people's favorite experience. It's really fun, it's really alt-friendly, and people just adore it. And the fact that one of TBC's most adored locations is the original vanilla concept that was expanded and finished, well, not expanded, shrunk and finished in TBC, says a lot about Vanilla WoW's potential. And here we're gonna move on to Caverns of Time, because that's right, that's another location that was finished within Vanilla. But once again,
I like that comment because I'm a classic Andy, literally a classic Andy when he's saying some of the most favorite content in TBC is just vanilla content. Feels good, man. Feels good. Like I said, doesn't need to be new content, but it doesn't need to be old content. Rather, it can be new content, but not a bad idea to finish some of the stuff the original devs had. I mean, their mind was in the right spot. So
pushed back and not really utilized until TBC. Now, we don't really know the full extent of Caverns of Time within Vanilla's world. That's right.
The extent of Caverns of Time inside of Vanilla's world is for Barney to make the best World of Warcraft video of all time and use the backdrop of Caverns of Time for one of the most epic scenes of all time in YouTube WoW history. That is the point of Caverns of Time.
The original Caverns of Time, whilst designed and done, is a mystery.
The video is called The Scarab Adventures of Scarab Lord or something like that. And I'm for sure going to do a reaction to those at some point. It's going to take me like an hour and a half to get through each episode. Amazing. Amazing content.
The only thing we know for a fact that was fully finished was the Black Morass. And that's right, it was bigger and way more in-depth. In fact, this place was so big, they literally cut off half the dungeon and you just teleported to the top half of the Black Morass and then have to deal with the first half of it. Because vanilla, for some reason, made everything as huge as humanly possible, which is cool, I appreciate it, but that's just something to keep in mind. In fact, in the original Black Morass, you had to walk into the portal, make a huge trek across a mysterious alternate dimension location because, you know, you're going through time, so time shenanigans, timey-wimey stuff. And you climb up this hill, going all the way around multiple times until you get to the top to Black Morass. And I think for the most part, you'll be meant to be fighting the infinite dragonflight here, fighting the dragons trying to stop you from stopping them from changing history.
I hated this dungeon in TBC, by the way. I did not think this was fun. I'm pretty sure I had to do it a bunch of times for like a trinket or a shield. Something drops in there in TBC that I needed as a tank, and I did not like coming in here. Maybe it was a weapon. Was it a pre-raid this weapon? I don't know. There was some reason I had to come in here, and I was not happy about it.
History. And this would have been the same, just imagine in Black Morass, but twice as long and kind of twice as shitty in this context because it's not. Honestly, I don't know anybody that likes Black Morass. The lore and the story is pretty cool, but the dungeon is terrible. So I understand why they cut half of this for TBC, but hey, we're talking about unfinished content and what it would have looked like, and not every piece of unfinished content was necessarily great content, and the Black Morass is a showcase of that. But
that's a good thing to remember. Just because something was developed around the time of Classic does not mean it's good content. There's plenty of stuff that the reason it's on the cutting room floor is because it belongs on the cutting room floor. So gotta be careful what we wish for with some of this stuff.
Brings up all the other locations and things that they've done in the Caverns of Time. From old Hillsbrad foothills to the Battle of Mount Hyjal, there is so much content there inside the Caverns of Time that utilizes vanilla locations and ideas. Even the Battle for Mount Hyjal is a continuation of the Hyjal location, just a top half, slightly retextured, slightly changed up, and made into a raid instead of a full-blown zone. Now, I'm going to cover Mount Hyjal more later in the video, and I'm not going to talk about it too much right here. But the fact that the Caverns of Time gives you the opportunity to revisit and go to so many locations and arcs and like timelines, both in the past, in the future, and what if scenarios, it really does show you what the world of vanilla is capable of. We could go back to the north.
You know, it is interesting. I didn't think about it like that, but obviously the Caverns of Time, other than being the backdrop for Barney's video, is it essentially lets you do anything, right? Like you time travel. You can do literally anything that you want. So there is a ton of opportunity there. I mean, they could go back and do some Warcraft 3 stuff, which could be really cool, or even Warcraft 1 or 2, because obviously World of Warcraft is heavily inspired. The lore from it's just is the lore from those games, right? Like just it's continuation. So that could be really cool. Go back and like go through some of those scenarios. Man, he said he's gonna talk about Mount Hyjal later, so I'm gonna talk about it later on, but Mount Hyjal is probably, other than the Dragon Isles, it's probably the thing that I am most interested in seeing in Classic.
Troll Wars when Stormwind was a fledgling kingdom expanding. Colonialism, fuck yeah. All the way to the Troll Wars between the Amani Empire versus the Arathi Empire and the High Elves all together fighting. That's just the tip of the iceberg. What about the Siege of Stormwind? People don't really think about that too much. When the old Horde, or I guess the true Horde, invaded Azeroth at the behest of Sargeras and Gul'dan and Medivh's, trickery and all those wars. What about the Alliance of Lordaeron pushing the Horde out of Azeroth? Concentration camps. I'm not sure why I mentioned that, but it is what it is. There are so many storylines that could be visited to make content out of. Imagine Alwyn Forest turned into a raid. The Horde pushing through Alwyn Forest, sieging Stormwind, and then you have to fight them off. There are dozens of
Evan's idea for Classic Plus content is concentration camps. Confirmed. I don't know if we're on the same page with this one, brother.
Stories to tell. You can effectively make infinite content within the.
Evan got concentration camps in TBC and said, "You know what? More. I need more of that." Only there was some place that we could put the orcs where we could really focus on them, somewhere where we could just like really pay attention to them, somewhere they could like go to hang out, like a a camp where they could concentration camp. That was what he saw. More
Caverns of Time. There is no limit to what you're capable of doing because the world of Azeroth is so interesting, the characters, the stories. People would love to see these things. What if we had Arthas' Siege of Northrend? Imagine him destroying the boat and having a whole dungeon of that. Imagine him climbing the citadel of the Frozen Throne to fight Illidan up there. There are so many storylines that could be done, and people would love all of them. But that's enough.
that stuff is super cool, obviously, and I mean, Illidan fighting Arthas is just like so peak and legendary, obviously, right? But I would say that we should be careful to not just spam main, lore characters like Medivh and Arthas and Kael'thas or Sargeras or Illidan. Like all these characters are super cool, but when you overuse them, they really lose. Other than Illidan, apparently, but they really lose that it factor. And so while yeah, those all of those ideas are awesome and those could make cool dungeons, it should really be used sparingly because a lot of what makes classics so cool is the world feels very lived in, like I was talking about with BRD. And having just random dungeons out in the world where it's like, hey, this is just like a self-contained thing, like Mardon has been corrupted, like go in there and go kill some guys, right? And like that's cool too. It doesn't need to be this massive overarching theme of like they're going to take over the world. It doesn't need to be that deep, right? And one of the things I really love about classic is this was I heard this on an Asmon video a long time ago. Is that in retail or in classic you're a nobody that does heroic things, and in retail you're just a hero that does nothing. And we need to we need to remember that like the character in classic World of Warcraft is just like a regular guy. He's not like this incredible person. Like as a group of adventurers, yeah, you're very powerful, but individually you're sort of just almost like a random, right? And it needs to stay that way because that feeling in the game, it makes you feel like you're not the world, but you are a part of the world, and the world is dangerous, and that's like a super important part of the game. So uh while it's fun to like have these really like world ending stakes, doing too much of that will give us a lot of issues in my opinion. So we need to be careful to not have these like massive storylines that are just essential to the world as a whole. Like there's hey, there's some bad guys in the cave, go kill them. That's good too.
Enough of the Caverns of Time because as much as I would love to have that, that's gonna be a thing that takes a lot more energy and art.
You only save the world so many times before it becomes weird. 100%. And then you're not even saving anything anymore. It's just like, like, what are we doing? Of course I'm going to save the world. I've done it 100 times. These guys should stop attacking. They know who I am. Do you guys know who I think I am?
Assets to do, unless they just reuse existing assets to just do things. But the Caverns of Time is amazing, which brings us on to Hyjal. And now, the Hyjal we have in Vanilla, and the Hyjal we got in TBC, and then the Hyjal we got in Cataclysm onwards are all different. Original Hyjal had the ginormous skeleton of Archimonde in there. When he tried to harvest the World Tree and then Malfurion called upon the Wisps, a billion Wisps exploded and Malfurion watched Archimonde detonate and annihilate everything. Now, in the context of TBC, it was turned into a raid, they changed things around, and it was the battle for Mount Hyjal, essentially watching Archimonde reach the end, and then Malfurion activating the horn, making the Wisp blow up, and seeing the finale of the Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos campaign. But in Classic Plus, in my personal opinion, and again, this is my opinion, it should not be based off TBC. It should be based...
I completely agree with this. If all we're going to do is just copy storylines from TBC, what is the freaking point? Like, come up with some new stuff. And I know that the WoW story team has been in question as of recent, although I will say the classic team seems to be doing a pretty good job. But don't just copy what you did in TBC. It's freaking boring and it's lazy. And to be frank, I'm not really interested. Hyjal sucks in TBC. It's like one of the worst raids ever, dude. It's so bad. So if you're going to make it better, which of course they're going to make it better, and I'm super excited for that because it's such a legendary location in World of Warcraft, like just overhaul the whole thing, right?
Off of the vanilla intentions, the original world of Azeroth, and expanding upon that. There should be a raid, the Barrow Dance, things of that nature. Just because TBC did one thing as original Classic Plus should be based off more on the original ideas and not the expanded upon or finished version for the retail team's design philosophy that they went with. Yes, that was the original team that made vanilla, but it's no longer the same team. So the storyline should be based more on what was left in the note for vanilla. It should be a new zone, a new raid, new dungeons, quest lines, NPCs, mobs. It should be something akin to AQ40 and Silithus, a full-blown, huge global zone, opening Hyjal, dealing with the demonic threats there, helping the corrupted furbolgs, dealing with the remnants of the Alliance or the Horde left over there, the demonic remnants, everything that could have been and should be dealt with. Hyjal is an expansive, amazing location, and I want to know the lore of Hyjal.
I could be being super lore ignorant here because I really am not like a big lore person whatsoever, like on any sort of level. But something that could be cool is if you're saving these corrupted full furbolgs, right? Furbolgs. If you're helping save them, maybe that could gain you favor with them and allow you through the gates in Ashara. Like that could be a really cool way to open it up. Like maybe the attunement is you complete the Hyjal raid, right? And then you have access to this zone. Or maybe there's like some pre-quest leading up to it where you're like, we're gonna help you guys. And then maybe that's like all of these things could be interconnected in the world, right? And that could be a really cool thing.
Before Cataclysm, and not the TBC version of just being a raid for the whole zone. Now, I can't speak to exactly how they should do Hyjal because everyone's opinion is different. You ask 10 people what Hyjal should look like in Classic Plus, you're gonna get 10 different answers. But
I can tell you what Hyjal should not be, which is just 10 minutes of clearing trash on every fight. That's probably not a good idea. Could probably do without that.
everybody agrees on the baselines. A raid, a zone, some dungeons, and quest lines. Everything aside from that is completely up in the air, but in my opinion, it just needs to be more classic. And that's very vague, I'm not going to lie, but that's what vanilla is. It's just the expansion upon the world. There is no right or wrong way to do this. I know there's going to be people in the comments saying this private server did this private server did that. The dev should look at all sorts of inspiration.
We need to all come together and agree right now as a community that there is certainly a wrong way to do Hyjal. Like we all need to come together hand in hand and agree, put our differences aside and say there is definitely a wrong way to do this. Anything else that you do other than that would probably be okay.
For what classic Hyjal should look like in this context. But it needs to be classic plus Hyjal. And that's a tall order to really achieve here. And this is just what TBC has taken. I'm not even talking about class tuning, new races, new classes, things of that nature. Death Knights were meant to be in the original vanilla, but that got scrapped. Paladins were meant to corrupt themselves and become Death Knights. That's not even talking about rune carvers who ended up becoming the new Death Knights in Wrath of the Lich King. That's not talking about other classes and race designs. All
They need to put Death Knights in Classic Plus. They could have it later on as some type of like later content that they go into. The way that you need to do it is you need to have a max level character. Maybe the character even needs to reach a certain item level with their gear so that you have to actually play on them. You need to sacrifice that character so you do not have access to it anymore. And then it becomes a Death Knight. And whatever race that you were previously, that is the new race of your Death Knight. That is the way it needs to work. You want to play a Death Knight? Put some skin in the game, homie. Like that is such a classic way to handle that. And it would be so cool, man.
the old scrap dungeons, because there was meant to be like 60 dungeons. So many open world locations that were meant to be dungeons that were left as open world little areas, high level quests. There are so many things in the vanilla ethos and world that could be made and perfected in Classic Plus that I'm not even going to discuss in this video. But let me know in the comments down below what you really think. What do you think they should take from TBC and reutilize in Classic's world? Or do you think that everything that TBC did is completely anti-ethical to the Classic world and they should not really bring any of that over? Because in my opinion, I don't really want them to copy TBC, but I want them to use what TBC used, but do it in the vanilla way. So thank you all for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. If you hated it, understandable. Dislike and subscribe so you can hate my next video too. And then come follow me over on Twitch so you can hate me live. I rant about Classic Plus and Classic 4 days a week. Thank you all for watching. Ebonhardt out. Peace.
We don't hate Ebonhardt. We love Ebonhardt. And we love Ebonhardt so much, we're going to like his video. We're going to leave him a comment. If you guys have not already
Next video too.
subscribe. Oh, That doesn't look good. If you guys have not already subscribed to Ebonhardt, you should go over to his channel and check him out. Great content creator, super nice guy as well. And yeah, that's the end of it. I think, and I feel like we're talking so much about Classic Plus. We just need to get the damn game. Give us something, right? Give us a little teaser. Just a little something would go a long way, I feel like.